Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Revelations about disgraced movie director Harvey Weinstein's abuse of women sparked a global reckoning with predatory male behaviour. But 5 years on from what became known as the MeToo movement, there's a growing backlash. Some influential people argue it's become divisive, pitting the sexes against each other with an assumption of male guilt, leaving many young men feeling marginalised. But was MeToo an overdue reckoning, or has it become a damaging battle in a raging culture war? And if any man now behaves in a way that looks like it's toxic masculinity, bang, they're expunged. Is in that process masculinity itself getting expunged and demonised?
I would say so. I mean, I'm sure that you'll have this experience with your own relationships, Piers, in that women, if you say something controversial, whether it's something on the Peterson side of the spectrum or on the Tate side of the spectrum, a little bit more explosive or a little bit more academic, some women are very much drawn to a man who can be a bit more confrontational, say exactly what he thinks. It's the verbal new version of what gladiators used to do in the arena way back.
Well, certainly, I think Ava and Isabel are laughing because they know that they're drawn to me in that way because of my combative nature. But Ava, you're smirking and laughing. I mean, there's a serious point here. A lot of young men feel they're getting disenfranchised by society. They're all being over-demonised, that any attempt to be the traditional male figure is now being rubbished and called toxic.
Well, I mean, if you really felt that and you really went out there and you were an alpha male, then you wouldn't be bothered about a bunch of women telling you that you were...
Well, you would if you get cancelled, like Andrew Tate, if you get banned from every social media
he's hardly been cancelled. He was on your programme, which is on national television.
But it's the only platform, actually, he's had for a long time because all the social media companies banned him, literally banned him. He had his email gone, his Google gone, his Facebook gone. It all went down like dominoes.
Well, he's still on there, very, very prolific on there. I can't move for clips of him.
Yeah, but they're not generated by him now.
Well, but that's been for quite some time.
But should he be punished that way?
But what is punished?
He's doing the same thing again.
Yeah, no, he's interrupting her.
Yeah.
But are you hearing what this woman's saying?
Yeah, he's got valid points here, but still, he needs to learn to let people talk.
Yeah, he does. He needs to learn to just let people say, because honestly, he should let her talk because she sounds like she's about to say something incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
How could you say he's hardly been cancelled? He's been cancelled off everywhere, not just social media, Uber, his banking apps, his email. Everything was taken from Andrew Tate. I don't care how you feel about him.
Yeah.
I don't care about what your politics are or what side you sit on. He was cancelled. That is an objective, observable reality.
Yeah.
Anyone that is saying otherwise has their head far up their arse, as far as humanly possible. I can't believe she came out with that. Do you know how profoundly stupid you have to be to say something like that? They put up this thing. Let me show it to you, actually. Before we continue playing this clip, I'll put it up on the screen. It made me laugh because it was the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life.
I know she's on the panel right now and she needs to talk, but it just reminds me of talking for the sake of talking and talking about something that she knows nothing about and thinking that she sounds like she's onto something, but really she's not.
Andrew Tate's popularity decreases following deplatforming from social media. Do you know how stupid that is to say? Of course his popularity would have dropped if you banned him on everything.
Yeah.
That is what cancellation is. He was super popular at the peak of his ban. He would have probably continued to become more popular, and then you cancelled him. So obviously the searches for him have gone down, mostly because you can't search him on Instagram. Nothing comes up other than fan pages. You can't search him on YouTube other than people hosting him on their shows.
Yeah.
You can't search him anywhere. It has to be through other people now. So that is what a cancellation is.
And you're not seeing any new content or anything, so you can't really keep on track with him either.
Yeah, this post says he's no longer making frequent guest appearances on podcasts. That's not true. He's literally been on, there's 4 podcasts I've seen this past week where Andrew Tate has appeared on them. But obviously the searches for him are going to go down. I really don't think people understand what cancellation is. He is still popular. He's more popular than most people, but he was cancelled. 100%. He was cancelled in the worst way as well. That was the biggest cancellation. That was worse than Donald Trump's cancellation.
Punished. What is punished?
Punished is where companies take a decision which, in my view, in this case, was perverse because they still allow, for example, the Ayatollah of Iran to have a Twitter account.
Yes.
So there's no consistency here at all.
Well, but however, we love a bit of free market. I'm sure you do, judging by that suit, which is lovely. But, you know, social media companies are private companies.
Can you not objectify them, please?
They can do
I'll
whatever
take all the
they like.
objectification I like.
Of course you will, yeah.
I just want to make a quick point. Social medias are private companies, but they behave like they are the new public arenas, right?
Yeah.
It's where everyone goes to discuss certain things. And fair enough, they're private companies. They can do whatever they want. But The fact that all of these terrorist groups remain on social media, a lot of very bad people are on social media, and they ban Tate from everything. There is a problem here. I mean, you can say they're private companies if you want, that's fine, but there is definitely a problem here. For these women to pretend, or at least this woman, I'm not going to speak for women, this woman to pretend like it's okay what they did. Everyone knows objectively what they did was wrong. I've even spoken to pink-haired feminists that think that what happened to Andrew Tate was wrong. You can have someone on social media and not like their ideas and just leave it at that.
But Ava, your point about, you know, if men were that alpha, then they wouldn't be that bothered by this, doesn't really help us when it comes to boys growing up. And that is one of my worries, that for teenage boys now, they are so terrified of the consequences of putting a foot out of line. It's hard enough being a young teenager, working out how things are, working out how to do dating and all of that, without the terror that if you touch in the wrong place at the wrong time, you may find that your whole life is destroyed.
See, I
and there
like
is
that
far
terror.
too much. Well,
I like that.
As a
I
mother
think that
of a
men should
teenage
be
boy, I
frightened.
don't like
Really?
that
That's
terror.
the most
I do.
malicious thing I've ever
That
heard.
is
I think that
awful.
men should be frightened
I think
to
you'd
touch
feel
women in a way
differently
that
if you
they're
were,
not
if you
comfortable
were.
with.
But we're talking about
Yeah, but we're not talking
teenagers,
about. We're
children.
not talking about.
We're talking
yeah, but
about
it's an
young
interesting thing
children.
that you see. I would say that attitude actually is part of the problem too. That is that's to me toxic femininity.
It is.
That is saying you should all be terrified, you men, if you put one
assaulting.
Well, I think we all understand what sexual
What is
assault
an
is.
assault?
What Isabel's talking about is that young teenage clumsiness
really
in many
hard.
cases, which is now being recategorised as assault. Is that a problem?
It's not being recategorised as assault. It's always been assault. It's just we're finally talking about it.
I don't agree with that.
That's
But
ridiculous.
Teenage boy fumbling with
touch
teenage
on the
girl
knee.
is not,
Not
it's
even
not
that.
in most cases assault, is
Do
it?
you remember Aziz Ansari, right? Half the heels of MeToo, half the heels of Harvey Weinstein rightly being dragged through the courts, and he should have got way worse than just prison time, in my opinion. Aziz Ansari had a consensual relationship with a woman. She felt a bit awkward, and afterwards rescinded consent, and he was lumped in, and he had his
No,
career
I'm with you on that
largely
one.
cancelled.
I'm with
so
you.
then why should men be afraid of that?
Because he didn't touch her without consent, did he?
No, but she
But
rescinded his
how-
consent, and
That is a very good point. I'm glad he brought up Aziz Ansari, but did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
He took a girl out, they went back to his place, they did what they did, and then afterwards she decided that she didn't give consent. So she took consent away after the fact. Now, obviously, he doesn't have a time machine. He can't go back in time and untouch her. He got lumped in with Harvey Weinstein. And it wasn't until later, after he'd been dragged through the mud, that people actually wants to listen to him. Do you understand the irreparable damage that did to his career and has probably done to multiple other people's? We all agree that sexual assault is wrong. We all agree there are plenty of people that go a step too far. But telling young men that they need to be frightened and terrified, you are 100% adding to the problem. That was one of the most moronic talking points, that young men should be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid. And talking to people like that is honestly just going to do more harm than good.
Yeah.
No one's going to listen to you. No one is going to listen to you if you chat like that.
I just feel like she's just not talking any sense right now. Like,
She's talking nonsense. Bare nonsense. You don't tell young men they should be afraid of women.
yeah.
That's not going to work, first of all. That's just not going to work. You want men to be on your side. We all agree what Harvey Weinstein did was messed up. He should have gotten prison time, probably worse. But that doesn't mean you lump in other people, because now you've got a whole movement going and suddenly anything is or anything is sexual assault. You can't just lump everything in under the same banner. That's like, words have meanings. You can't just throw everything in there.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like women like this just want men to just tiptoe around and just obey orders and just not be men.
Women like this want to watch the world burn. And that is exactly what is going to happen with mentalities like that. You know, I saw this comment actually left on one of our YouTube videos, and it was this person that had been watching our videos since we opened, which I appreciate, but they basically unsubscribed and they said that they're not involved anymore because this looks like a female hate channel. And it's not.
What?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, she used other words, but she was basically saying this is a channel that bashes women.
Oh, whatever.
And I hate to break it to you, there is an attack on masculinity right now. Men are being attacked for everything. You don't really hear toxic femininity thrown about, and I don't think it should. It's also a stupid phrase. But we don't label anything toxic femininity. Everything is toxic masculinity. So yeah, we point out the issues that men are facing because not enough people are talking about them. And you're demonized for saying that you might like Andrew Tate or you like being a traditionally masculine guy. guy, or just pointing out that something that a woman's done is wrong and the guy's in the right, you get demonized for it. So to the person that made that comment, I appreciate you watching the channel. If it's not for you anymore, that is perfectly fine, but there's a reason why we are pointing these things out. And it's not like we don't point out things that men do.
This is it. If you watch all of our videos, you will see that it's very diverse as well, and it's not just...
Yeah, I mean, we rip
That's
Ethan Klein
ridiculous.
like every day. There's an Ethan Klein video on here every day. I rip into him all the time.
But we also, you know, will defend women where women are in the right as well. So
yeah, 100%.
that's
We've got
bizarre
like
to me.
70 or 80 videos on the channel. It's not just women that get ripped into, but there's 100% a need to stand up for men, because right now we are being demonized in the media. Every single little thing we do, we get demonized for it.
Yeah.
And this woman should have her points scrutinized.
Because he didn't touch her without consent, did he?
No, but she
But
rescinded his consent, and
how are
she
young
saw
boys
that then
supposed to
as the same
navigate
thing.
this, the whole
Yeah, I
thing?
agree.
I'm thinking
you
of
need to
my
have-
teenage son. You know, he's 14, 15. What's he supposed to say? Would you mind if I put
Isabel,
my
you are an
hand- I mean,
extremely
come
strong
on,
woman. I
come
know
on.
in your house you're teaching them the difference between assault and then coming on to
Of
someone.
course. But
I
when we're
know
talking,
you are.
but when we're
Just before we continue, this is the problem with people like this, right? They will say dumb shit, they'll get called out on the dumb shit, and then they'll try and backtrack and say anything to make it look like... Do you know what I'm saying? So she's saying one thing, the lady's confronted her about it, now she's like, oh yeah, but I know that you'll probably be doing it. No. Stick to your point, or just know that you're chatting shit.
Yeah, she knows she's chatting shit.
Do you know
and
what I
she knows
mean?
that everyone on the panel is now going to go for her. Like, there's no way out of what she just said.
Yeah, but now she's too far deep in to back down as well, otherwise she'll look stupid. So she's going to keep going, saying stupid things. I just know it.
happens, we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
This is not even something to be debated. We're really talking about the grey line, right? Where is that grey line? How do you navigate it? When you're an experienced adult and you've been around the block in many ways, you can navigate that much more intelligently and with emotional intelligence than you can if you're a teenage boy. And I think the point Isabel makes is a good one. I've had 3 sons in their 20s. I've always taught them to be respectful to women, and I believe they are. But I do think it's really hard for a 16, 17-year-old boy now in this environment to know even how to start
they are all
having some
terrified.
kind of physical relationship with a woman.
Those good boys are all terrified. I know that from talking to my son. He's just like, I'm just not going there. Is that healthy?
Yes, I
The
think
other
it is
point-
actually. I think it's better to not have a physical relationship than to have one that could ruin a woman's life.
But then how do they ever start?
Well, don't if you're not 100% sure.
This woman is just going from one extreme to the other. Like, there's a difference between fumbling with a girl and maybe making a mistake here and there, and then full on assaulting her and having an abusive relationship. God forbid that she has sons and she's teaching them this.
It just makes no sense what she's saying, and it's just not reality. She's just literally said, yeah, it's better to not do any of that, to not risk ruining a woman's life. That's not the way life goes, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the majority that does that as well. And how was she born? How was she born? Because if that's the mindset...
Someone had to make a move.
She practically wants men to all be incels then, and that's it. We're just going to all go extinct because she thinks that every woman's life's going to get ruined.
If men are to be raised the way she's talking, then we're just going to have a bunch of neutered men. You have to take your shot. You do it in a respectful way. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you overshoot your boundaries. But there's a far cry between overshooting your boundaries and sexually assaulting a woman. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, but I also think with majority of situations as well, you know if it's the right time or not, or if the woman wants it or not. If you did feel really uncomfortable, there is ways to approach the situations as well. Like, you could have a conversation about it. I know it's awkward, but if you really wanted to, you could see what page she's on. But also as well, with the way women will act with you, you'll know if she doesn't want you to touch her, or if she's quite open to it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like, don't meet up with a girl first time and then just go straight in and hope for the best. It's just, there's just ways to go about it, and it's just not an impossible. Yeah, it's not an impossible task, and I feel like it's really being blown out of proportion. And I don't know if I sound insensitive right now saying this,
But you know, when you go out and like you go to, I don't know if you go clubbing.
no, I don't, but I've been.
Like, if you go to a bar or
Yeah.
whatever and a guy sees you and he likes you, there's nothing wrong with him coming over and like trying to like talk to you or get your number. If you don't like him, you just tell him to jog on in a polite way. But there's no harassment with that. I understand some people can be a little bit too much in your face. I don't really get what she's getting at. Like, what does she expect men to do? I don't understand. And it's no wonder that guys are afraid, because there's women like this with that mentality. And if she starts like making noise, everyone's going to be on her side.
That's the problem. Yeah, it's that with women like that, they can literally ruin your life. Because they will take it to the extremes as well.
100%, because she's talking, I mean, she said it in much less words, but her viewpoints are borderline, like, they're pushing extreme viewpoints on like men should be frightened.
Don't. If you're not 100%
Don't.
sure,
What are we going
don't.
for?
What are you going to have? A bunch of Newton
Celebrate.
boys who
But
never
it's
had.
so obvious.
We actually
It's
do
sort
have
of
that.
like-
Gen Z is having far less sexual relationships
Yes,
than any
they
ever before.
are. It's true.
And
young
hang
people
on.
have stopped having sex.
I agree with the first part of your sentence, actually. If you're not willing to have a sexual relationship with clearly defined lines, don't have one. And so I actually told my mates at university, don't sleep around with girls. 1, girls don't bring a guy home that you don't know what he's capable of. 2, guys, don't bring a girl home if you think that possibly she could have a false accusation against you.
Can I make another point here?
Which I
think-
find, I mean, look, that
What?
sentence to me, when I was your age, right? How old are you?
23.
23. When I was your age, the idea you would even have that sort of thought process.
Yeah, I
would
wouldn't
be
have those sort of
unthinkable.
mates that would ever cross the line, so I wouldn't have to have that
I never
conversation
said my
with any
mates.
of my friends.
Don't throw my mates in with a bunch of violent people.
And is there a certain...
This woman's really something. I've heard girls saying, "Oh, talk to your friends, make sure they don't cross the line." This guy literally on TV says, "Yeah, I had that chat with my friends to make sure they don't take a girl home that could cause them problems, and they don't go home with a girl that might like try to do whatever." He's literally had the conversation with them, and then she's turned around and tried to lump them in with a bunch of abusers. Like she doesn't have friends that she have to have that conversation with. Isn't that what you hear a lot of people saying? They're like, "Oh, but you don't know if your friends are doing something, so talk
But
to
this
them."
is it. It's he's said he's done a wise thing by talking, and she's just taken it and spun it already.
She's just, do you know what? This is a woman. I guarantee you, this is a girl that has made bad choices with men, and she's taken it out on other people now. I guarantee you, because her talking points are not, they're not for progression. It's not conducive to anything that's going to help anyone. I have no problem with a woman pointing out issues in our society. There's plenty, and there's plenty of things that we as men can learn as well. I'm willing to accept that. Everyone has to be willing to accept that they can grow and evolve on some level. But her talking points are extreme talking points as far as I'm concerned. This doesn't help. I get why he got pissed off there. I would get pissed off if someone said that to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. This conversation
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
And she's
from her
trying
standpoint.
she's trying to like paint a picture of him on national television as well. It's
Yeah,
not-
and his friends.
not
It's-
fair, it's
If I
wrong.
was his friend sitting at home, I'd be pissed hearing that.
I think what has sent a shudder through all of our spines from your mouth today is the line that all young men should be terrified of any physical
assaulting
contact.
someone.
Well, no, you didn't say it like
didn't
that.
say that.
You said basically of starting any physical contact with a
Unless
woman.
you're sure.
Well,
Unless
how
you're
does a
How are you
16,
supposed
How can
17-year-old
you
boy
be sure
know?
when she can rescind consent on something completely nebulous?
Okay, can I ask you this? If you were going to take someone to bed and you weren't 100% sure that they wanted to go to bed with you, would you go with
No,
them?
I would not do that.
Then
But the
that's what
point
I'm
was,
talking-
How can you be 100% sure if she can rescind consent? If she tells you she wants to go to bed with you, and then the day after she decides it wasn't what she wanted, and now she's taking it back, and she tells everyone that she didn't want to go to bed with you, how can you ever be 100% sure? How are you ever supposed to know? You're supposed to shoot your shot with a girl, and it either goes your way or it doesn't. And then, you either go home or you go home with her. How are you're never going to be 100% sure about anything. What the hell is she talking about? It literally makes no sense. Like, it's the same way you could shoot your shot with a guy and think
Yeah.
you're in, and then he just decides, I don't want to. Like, you thought that you knew where it was going, and then you didn't.
She just keeps backtracking though as well on what she's saying. Like she's not making sense. Like she's been called out on the fact that she's saying men should be afraid, but then she's like, oh, of assault. But 2 minutes ago you wasn't saying that.
It was very clear, defined conversation, and she said what she said, and now she's trying to backtrack. Obviously, you should not be assaulting a woman. You should not be assaulting anyone. You should not be putting your hands on anyone that doesn't want you to put your hands on them, and you definitely shouldn't be assaulting them. We all agree. Everyone with a rational mind agrees on that. So I don't know what the hell she's talking about.
But
Ava, do you feel
not.
any of it, Ava's gone too far? Do you think the pendulum has gone too far at all?
No, I don't. I don't think it's gone far enough, actually.
Really?
I don't think we've brought anything into schools. To your point, we haven't brought any teaching into school about what is assault, what isn't. If you're worried about 16-year-old boys not understanding what it is, bring in sexual health lessons. Teach it.
The idea that you can teach rapists not to rape is insane because they already know.
What do you mean?
That it's illegal. Okay, right. You're saying if boys wouldn't know what's assault and what isn't.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. The idea that rather than taking the power out of someone who can make a false accusation is what most of them are concerned about. Specifically, my friends, for example, who would never dream of doing something like that. But then what the feminists fail to understand is you can educate
The
evils.
feminists.
Did you not identify yourself as a feminist study?
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, okay,
Piers
sorry.
called me that.
Piers
You're not
did.
a feminist?
It doesn't matter if he called you a feminist or not. You're clearly absent-minded. Well, the label really doesn't matter at this point.
But yeah, this is it. And it just goes back to, because obviously in the beginning she was complaining about Andrew Tate. And Andrew Tate's done a whole video, well, the podcast that we done a video on, based on the concept of people know right from wrong. People know they shouldn't assault. People know they shouldn't. We don't live in that ideal world. You can't sit there and teach people not to do it because everyone already knows it's wrong.
Yep.
But
they know it's wrong as well. That's why they hide from the law.
That's it. And it's just, we don't live in that world where you can sit down and say, don't do this and people are going to listen. Reality, this is life that we're living.
These people that do these nasty things to women know that it's wrong. That's why they hide from the law. Nobody does something like that and then just goes strutting around the next day when they know people are looking for them. Like, they're hiding from the law. Unless literally no one knows, then yeah, obviously they're going to go strutting around. But they know in their minds what they did is wrong, because when people start catching on, they start hiding. So men are taught to not do these things. We're taught not to steal. We're taught not to punch women in the face. We're taught that we're the stronger sex. You shouldn't assault. You don't assault a child. So I don't know what the hell she's talking about. I'm not against bringing in like things to teach people if it's needed.
Yeah.
If it's needed, if there's a child that is doing something wrong, or a teenager, then obviously teach them right from wrong if they haven't been taught at home already. But generally, people know not to do these things, right? You know not to walk up to a guy and slap him around the face. You're just taught to not do these things. There's consequences for your actions.
But also as well, just going off of the way she's acting just now as well, she's not trying to listen to understand this guy. She just wants to be against she just wants to be opposite side of the coin as to what any of these are going to say right now. So he's sitting there trying to talk and make a valid point, and then he mentioned the word feminist. Like, it's just listen to what he has to say. Don't be so touchy and picky about small things, and maybe just let this guy educate you. This guy who's clearly way younger than you as well.
And
let
far
him
more
educate
educated.
you.
Ava, I would like to know whether you accept that women, and particularly teenage girls and young women, sometimes give out pretty mixed signals. They give out mixed messages. They're not even sure what they want at any given time.
I think we're victim blaming.
How the fuck is that victim blaming?
Can
we not acknowledge that maybe something else is also happening?
Oh my God.
I literally had this conversation the other day. It is not victim blaming. It is just telling someone to be aware of what they might be doing in the situation as well. The conversation I had was about the same thing we spoke about the other day with walking home at 2 a.m. If you walk home at 2 a.m. through a park, like, I wouldn't do that. So why in God's name is a woman doing that? If you know that there's crazies outside, you know that you more than likely won't be able to defend yourself. You might not walk out alive. It's not to say that you deserve that to happen to you. You don't. But if I tell you, right now, Sabi, if I tell you there's a psycho in your park and you decide to go walk through it, do you bear any responsibility?
100%.
If I'm watching you and I'm telling you, you're giving that guy mixed signals. You're kind of leading him on. And maybe he's not socially equipped to deal with this situation. I've just told you, you're leading him on, because this is a situation that happens a lot. I've been in situations where I've told one of my friends that you're kind of flirting with the guy and then you're telling us you don't like him. You know, you're giving him mixed signals. We watched that girl talk about how she just goes out of men for free meals, even though she knows they like him.
Yeah.
So if someone's pointing out that this does happen, and this 100% does happen, it's not to say that women deserve to have anything happen to them, but the fact that you're giving out mixed signals, maybe going to a club with something on that you shouldn't be wearing in that area, because I hate to break it to you, but bad people exist. And if you're walking into a club that is full of dangerous people and they can all see your cleavage, or they can see your ass, it doesn't mean that something should happen to you. It does, however, mean that you maybe did not exercise some responsibility in how you left the house.
There is mixed signals and everything. I think that women do it a lot. But one thing I will say though, and is you will probably agree, is that people can change their mind at any time.
Of course.
Do you know what I'm saying? You could be really, whatever with a guy, and then you can think, do you know what, I don't want to do this.
That's your prerogative, and that's completely fine, but then you can't say he's assaulted you.
No, of course not. No, obviously not that, but I'm just saying, like, it can't be...
You don't have to follow through with something you don't want to do.
basically.
That's completely fine. Like, there's guys I know that one day they're on it and then they're like, I'm not on it anymore. It's fine, like, it's whatever. But you have to communicate that.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, a lot of girls I've spoken to, they don't communicate these things. They kind of expect the guy to know. And then it gets to like the very peak of the moment, and maybe they're even in the act and they decide, actually, I don't want to do this. And now suddenly there's a sexual assault charge against this guy. That's just not how it works. Now, that's not me saying that's always the case. There are definitely going to be situations where women are sexually assaulted unprompted and they've told the guy straight up, I'm not interested, and he's still gone for it. No one's saying that doesn't happen. But the conversation is about where the line is for the men that are not trying to assault women and are not trying to cross that grey zone. And this woman is just not understanding that at all. She said that the pendulum hasn't swung far enough. How much further do you want it to swing? Seriously, like, if it swings any further, we're just going to be in the deep end all the time.
And
How do we get past
can
that?
I make one other point, which is this whole thing of dredging up allegations that are 10 or 20 years old, I think is absolutely awful.
Why?
Because it's a he said, she said. It's
Isabel,
impossible to
why?
prove. And there are people whose careers and their lives are completely
not really-
ruined by allegations that are brought a decade or more after the event. Now, obviously, if the person was a minor at the time of the incident, or the alleged incident,
I
then
can't believe you're
fine.
saying this,
There
that we
shouldn't be
shouldn't
a
bring up historic assault claims.
I don't
That's
think-
absolutely
I don't
crazy.
think you should be bringing-
Women who
I
would have
don't-
been too afraid to confront it at the time
Why?
because they were too young or too
Right,
powerless
I
to
said
bring it
about-
up in
I
the
said
first
about-
place.
See,
Youth-
I would actually side slightly with Ava here.
I don't agree that you shouldn't bring up historical assault charges. 100%. Like, if something did happen to you, you can bring it up. That is also a grey area because it does become a he said, she said thing. But we also have to acknowledge that sometimes these things do happen and women do bring them up late, and it doesn't invalidate them.
Yeah.
I don't really know the rationale for why they wouldn't bring it up at the time, outside of them being too young or maybe it being a power thing. I don't think they shouldn't bring it up. Assault's assault at the end of the day. It's wrong. If you can bring it up and get the person done for it,
Yeah, like look at R. Kelly.
that situation is crazy. R. Kelly doing those things, or anyone doing any of those things that he did, they should be brought up, no matter how old R. Kelly is or how
Yeah.
far removed it is. Well, he went too far. But that is also a grey area. There's certain things that you can't lump in with other things. So mostly, I think this blonde girl in the middle, I'm mostly talking out of her ass. Apart from historical assault, that should be brought up. But again, there's a grey area, and it's a very delicate situation because so much time has passed. It shouldn't just be 100% blame on the guy because the woman's brought it up after 30 years. A thorough investigation needs to be done because you can ruin someone's life. Someone could have gone through their whole life, and 30 years down the line, after they get contacted by somebody they slept with and this person wants to extort them or whatever. That's not fair. So there is a grey area. It's not victim blaming. It's not victim shaming. And it's not denial either. It's just these things need to be dealt with a lot of care. Because if you don't deal with them with a lot of care, there's going to be serious backlash in the future. One day the situation will blow up and people ain't going to be happy about it. We've seen people riot for less.